Hello, and welcome to episode 396 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And the Travelling Wilbury. I know there's quite a few of the Travelling Wilburys, but he's the only one I know. And his name is Tony Esmond.
Bonjour, mes amis. I'm the one at the end of the line, I believe it's the song, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, dear. Oh, it's an absolute banger of a tune.
This reference is completely lost on me.
Travelling Wilbury song. Come on, Dan. I know you're just into grime and stuff, but, you know.
Yeah. You should really invest in a Travelling Wilbury CD. We'll get him that for his birthday.
Okay, good. Yeah. On the train back right from where I was, there was two people who sat in front of me, and I'm looking at them, and Sam's going to me, "Are they on telly?" And I think I fucking realised they were those two old age pensioner blokes from London who now do drill music. Have you ever heard of them? They're called Baz and somebody else. They're fucking terrible. Oh my god!
For people who don't know, where have you been?
I've been to France. Been to Angoulême.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
What does that translate as? Do you know?
That's the name of the town, isn't it?
Yeah. Tony has great hair. It's just the name of the town, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Twinned with Tony Esmond.
Although I did send you a picture of a couple of twins, didn't I?
Yes.
I got on the train, and then we sat down on the train, and I went, "Oh fuck me, we're dressed the same."
It was absolutely marvellous, and also I could laugh on a whole nother level because I've turned up at a comic event dressed
looking like me. Yeah, we've done the same way. Yeah.
You can do
literally the same clothes.
The uniform having like blue or dark jeans with white trainers and a black t-shirt. That's the standard uniform.
What's that? That sounds like a standard uniform of like a pop band from the 80s.
Oh yeah. Or a sort of Nazi group of some kind.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I think there's quite a lot of crossover in comics and that kind of...
Yeah. That's funny you should mention that, because Vince and I turned up with like little tiny moustaches under our noses and brown shirts tied up to the top.
But welcome to the show, everyone. Obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit about Angoulême and the comics culture in general and what's going on and like what it was like there. And also probably having a little bit of a chat, a rant, talking like comics it's shaping up to be a very interesting year for comics, isn't it? Publishing and across the board, and
slightly a dodgy year, and a worrying year, and everything all at once. Again, here we go again.
Here we go again. So thank you for joining us this week, and we're gonna be. It's just the three of us. As you can see, we haven't got a guest this week, although we do have a little bit of audio that but I'll let Tony lead that in shortly. But
we'll do that in a bit.
But our sponsors need no lead in whatsoever. They are the wonderful Comic House.
Yes.
Indie comic marketplace with a difference that loves indie comics as much as we do. And obviously they help keep the lights on in this place. Mm. I say this place like we're all in the same place.
We are really.
It feels like we are, doesn't it?
I've got an announcement about Comic House. Rock you to your core.
Oh, okay.
Not really. Pete reached out and said he's going to be sending an email out to you if he hasn't done so already.
Oh, thank God. I thought that was a scam email.
No. If you're a user already, just to verify your username, because we just want to get rid of all the kind of unwanted users and bots that are infested sites.
People who create accounts just to review their own comics, those sort of people,
Yeah. I have done that, and I've completed it.
I clicked on it in the end, and then I thought, oh, what have I done? Yeah. But it sounds like it's all right, so it's good.
That's all legit.
And you should get involved in the service, because if you look at the Comic House website, there's a huge selection of independent comic titles on the database. If you self-publish, you can list your book on there as well. It's another avenue to get the hard copies out to the world, as well as the digital app. It's only about £3 a month. You get access to an enormous and growing library of independent comics that we've talked about, will talk about, no doubt. I always like looking for stuff that I've never really heard of. I mean, there's guests past, present, and no doubt future on that app, but I like looking for the ones that I have absolutely no.
Yeah, me too. We're always looking for something to recommend, aren't we? So it's a good place to stop for us.
Yeah. So
one on there called The Final Lullaby. It looks like a manga, which I think we'll be circling back to later, won't we?
Oh, indeed, yes. So you should look that up and many more. Find out more about it. There's a 14-day free trial. And check out comichouse.com. And thank you to them, as always, for sponsoring the show.
Thanks, Pete.
Cheers, Pete and the gang.
Pete and the gang.
They're not really a gang. They're just a group of friends.
No.
Yeah.
When does a group of friends become a gang?
It's more sinister a gang, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say when violence involved, but that's many friend circles have that. So
hey, you're not supposed to talk about Fight Club. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, stripped to the waist wrestle club that we're involved in. Yeah.
Way more baby oil used in our wrestling than
God, pints of it.
Oh God, yeah. I tell you what, it's a expensive luxury, isn't it? That hobby.
And it stings.
And sometimes comics are the same. So,
yeah.
Oh, nicely done.
Thank you. Yes, but what doesn't sting is when you end up going on a journey and discovering a wonderful sort of culture and atmosphere and surrounded by comics. And obviously we've been talking about, over the years, and we've mentioned, I mean, Tony, we've spoken to you about Angoulême before in the past.
Yeah, I've been once before. It's my second one. Yeah.
This is your second one. Is it your second? This is the first time pre-pandemic?
Yeah, it was just pre-pandemic, and then there was one more which we didn't end up going to last year because they moved the date and it clashed with a book fair in Bologna, which was a big deal. So we didn't do last year's. We were meant to. I think we had passes and everything, but it got moved. So just this is the next one. So me and Sam have been to the only ones in the last, apart from this one.
So to kick us off then, to start this off, firstly. For those who may not have heard us speak about it before or don't necessarily know what this is, what is this Angoulême of which we speak, and how was the organisation and presentation, obviously post lockdowns and pandemics and stuff like that? Yeah,
that's interesting, man. I mean, so for those that don't know, Angoulême is kind of Europe's big convention. It's on par with New York and San Diego for me.
It's massive.
Massive, yeah. And it's spread all through the town of Angoulême, which is kind of just north of Bordeaux, if you know where that is, in sort of southernish France. For those who want to go to it, I thought I might just explain how I got there very briefly, just so you can. I think you'd enjoy it. I think most people listening to this would have either been or would certainly enjoy going. So it's easy for me. So it's a trip on the Eurostar. You then do a 10-stop hop on the tube, the French tube, underneath Paris, across Paris, and then it's another 2.5 hours from the main train station down to Angoulême.
Okay.
Now the trains in Europe they're like double-decker trains, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
So it's quite a comfortable trip, So I go with no brow, so I get what's called a Pro Pass. Which you apply for, and it was much easier this year. Last time we had to leg it into the town, queue up at the people who issue passes, and then but this time they sent it to you. You can print it out, and you just put it in a lanyard. Oh, so much better. Yeah. So everyone hears that the town of Angoulême is difficult to get accommodation, and to a certain extent that is true. But what it does, it's a big town. It's sort of a town on a hill, really. So if you think of it, there's sort of battlements, as it were, on the top of this hill, and that's within those battlements is an area of the town that's sort of historic. So the main offices and where the press office is and the organising offices are in the hotel. I think it's called the Hotel de Ville, which is kind of the town hall, and it's all in there. But around that are various tents and various other venues, which we'll talk about in a bit, that contain the convention. So as you walk about, you're in the whole of the town, you're in the convention, but in the lower bit of the town, between that area and the train station, are basically houses for people who open up their doors for convention goers. It's almost like a tradition, because long before Airbnb, that these will open their doors to people travelling in who are fans or professionals within bande dessinée and elsewhere. So we stay with a lovely lady called Catherine, and I think Sam's been staying there for donkey's years, well over a decade. And I've stayed there the last couple of times. And she's just this lovely lady who is not expensive. And she picks us up when we get at the train station, drives us to the house. We have breakfast with her every morning. She's got a bit of English, and and Sam's got quite a lot of French, and I've got a tiny bit. And we just sort of have a giggle with her,
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, it's really nice. And there was a couple of other people staying there they were from Brittany, so they had quite strong accents. But they didn't have any English. But we'd sort of communicate by pointing at comics and things and chatting about it. And
universal language.
Yeah, they were lovely. And they do a sort of equivalent of like a fanzine, like a Speakeasy or an Arkansas or a Tomorrow's publication, but in French, obviously. And and they were close to where I was sort of based in the convention hall, so they're nice as well. And we just sit there and have breakfast together, and then we all troll up the hill. God, that's a hike because it's literally on a hill. So you have to like, like hills that you wouldn't want to cycle down because they're so steep. They're like that. And then you get to the top of those hills and you're like, oh, I'm knackered now. And then there's like a set of like 400 steps or something you have to walk. We're like, oh, here we go. Not these steps again. And you sort of leg it to the top steps. So it's quite nice on the way home.
Then you got to do a conde as well.
Yeah, and you got to wander around the con. But on the way home, if you've had a few jars, it's quite icy on the way down. You see people like on their arse, trying to get the way down the hill and stuff like this. Yeah, it's a beautiful town. It's not. It's probably not a place to go to outside of the convention, but everywhere there's a museum that has an all-round year comics exhibition there. There's all kinds of murals and street art and stuff there's a massive one about Asterix the Ghoul at the moment. It's great. The train station, you wouldn't believe it, man. The train station, it's been done up since last time we were there. But you come out the front of it, and there's 2 Asterix statues there.
Oh, awesome!
Commemorating Goscinny and Uderzo, and then there's like the train, the sort of staircase over the top of the platform has got like art on it. It's like Drouillet and Husano and Ito, and it's like an art exhibition in itself.
Oh, that's excellent. Because one of the things I was very kind of like, oh my God, I'm so jealous of that, was when you said there was going to be those big art displays by the Junji Ito was going to be there, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was easily, 10 major exhibitions probably. I went to 2. So day 1, so we got in on the Wednesday. We got in because of our train. We got in about 6:30, and we sort of legged it to the town and sort of, said hello to various people in restaurants. And then we had believe it or not, we had a curry. And there's quite a good curry restaurant there. We were wandering around. Everywhere's always packed there. So wandering around, and we said, we'll probably get a table in there. So we went in there, and we were just knackered. So we sat down there and had a couple of beers and a curry, and it was just all we needed,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got up early on the Thursday and went to the Drouillet and the Ikigami exhibitions were in the Angoulême Museum. So the ground floor of the Angoulême Museum is like dinosaur bones and all this sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And then you go up the stairs and there's these 2 massive exhibitions. But I got there for it opening. So it opened at 10 and it was still packed. Absolutely rammed. And
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I did some running around and looking at stuff, and I thought, I'll go and see the Ito on the Friday. Couldn't get anywhere near it, man.
Really?
Yeah. There's these sort of concrete stairs outside into the venue, and there was a line all the way around the block. I thought,
bloody hell.
I ain't got the time. Wow.
This kind of I'm interested in hearing this, because you mentioned before we start recording, there's actually quite a lot of pushback at manga.
Yeah, we can talk about that now if you want. Yeah, there is.
Does that seem a good time to it?
Yeah, I think so, man. Yeah. So manga is everywhere, isn't it? I think most notably to me is one of the places I hung out was what's called the Rights Tent, which is where the different companies have a booth, or people who work for publishers turn up, and it's all about the sale and purchase of foreign rights of comics. Okay. That makes sense. So Rebellion had a stall there, so they can sell the Steel Claw collections to Poland, for example, or this sort of thing. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time in there, and there's at the back of it, there's a sort of talk, and it's different companies, different countries mostly, who are presenting their comics. Now, interestingly, there weren't any Japanese companies. And I was chatting to Sam about it, and we said, well, they don't need it. People are desperate for them anyway. Yeah. Yeah, but what there was a Taiwanese stall. They were making a big deal of it because they've got a lot of comics that are, I suppose, with all due respect to Taiwan, manga adjacent. Yes, and Hong Kong as well, who are now sort of laying somewhere between the style of Jade Man comics, which we all love on here, don't we? Yeah, and the sort of more manga-esque and the sort of more all-ages stuff as well. So you'd walk past, and then all these people would say, oh, where are you from? And have you seen this? And, they have all their books with them, and you chat to them, and then they might be doing a presentation later, and you can go and sit and watch that. A lot of it was in English as well. So there's that. But from the Japanese point of view, to get back to your question, is it was everywhere. Right. Now, there's a big right next to the train station is a manga center that it looks like the outside of something you would see in a Kurosawa movie. Okay. They've done it out, so it looks like that arch.
Yeah,
that you see.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get anywhere near it, so I was going to go another one. I was going to go to on Friday, and I was chatting to a couple of guys that I'd met. And I said, "Oh," they said, "What are you doing for the rest of the day?" And I said, "Well, I might go down to the manga one." And one of the guys said, "No, man, don't even bother. It's going to be packed." And it's right because it's right next to the train station, and we were quite close to it. The end of the queue was easily a couple hundred meters from the door before it opened on the Saturday.
Christ,
yeah, it's like a massive deal there. But speaking to people, they were the sort of smaller publishers. They are like, what can we do to stop manga taking over our comics? And from a sort of French people, you know, and I had to say, well, I don't think you can, man, because you're probably in relation to that sort of thing. You're probably a few years behind America and Britain, and it's done us already.
Yeah,
we've already been beaten back by that wave, my friend. You know,
it's totally been steamrolled by that. Like, it's just...
And I think there's such a reverence for their comics, which we don't have in his country. For people, nobody cares about the history of British comics, do they? Really?
No.
In general, there's such a reverence for their comics, so they're worried that it's going to take it away. So one of the big tents is so I'll talk about it in a minute, but there's various tents, but one of them is where all the massive publishers are: Soleil, Dargaard, Spiru, Heavy Metal, all these sort of people have these sort of big, massive. So there's a massive tent, and inside it was almost like they built buildings, and you go in, and they do have manga areas in them, but they're nothing in comparison to the rest of the bande dessinée products.
Right. Okay.
But you do sense that manga is absolutely massive there.
Yeah.
All the kids turning up on the Saturday, because Thursday school they have a lot of school kids. Friday tends to be adults, and then Saturday and Sunday tends to be more the kid stuff. You see that's one of the guys was saying to me, that's where we don't normally have cosplay, but we do now because of manga. So I'm not sure if it was more visible, but there was a big influx of fans of manga at the weekend.
It doesn't strike me. It strikes me as more of a serious place for comics. I mean, like, not that you'd get people dressing up in cosplay, so that kind of like tracks. But very interesting that the fact that there is now people turning up with in cosplay. It's wow. Okay.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it, not a huge amount. I mean, it was a big year this year, and maybe the reverence for the great masters of French comics was because it's the 50th anniversary. But as you walk down the high street, there's a big high street drag. Imagine like the high street in somewhere like Colchester, or one of those sort of bigger English towns. Yeah. That's the high street, and on each side is there's like a Burton's or something like that, And down that drag, which leads between the main tents, they have banners hung from the lampposts, and they have Goscinny and Hergé and these sort of people. And they also had Klaus as on one, Julie Doucet on another. Julie Doucet was one of the big guests, but they also had Otomo and Tezuka on those banners as well, which is interesting.
Some of the big names.
Yeah, I mean, Tezuka to me is comparable to Hergé, isn't he? Really, there's a Hergé element, stuff like Astro Boy and stuff. Yeah, so there's a bit of I don't think they quite mind the older stuff. I think it's the new. I won't name the person, but somebody said to me it's comics for babies. Tony was his big. That was his broken English translation of what he was trying to get at to me.
Do you think it's more? I'm not being down on those people anymore. That thinks that like a bit sour grapes kind of deal. I mean,
maybe.
I think there's also like the cultural differences as well, like and there are cultural divides within certain things. I know when I've been in Europe, like we've said, like in France and Belgium, etc. Like the sequential storytelling is put on a different platform than anything we're used to. But if you showed them, like, a superhero comic or something like that, they would probably go. Some of the people who live their lives reading these books would just turn their nose up at them.
Like, I think that's a definite. I've written that down as a note, and I think you're completely right there, because whilst they have the reverence for their great creators, there was very little. For example, Kirby, Ditko, Neil Adams on show.
No.
And Jack Kirby wasn't on a banner that I saw anyway. He may have been elsewhere in the
I can totally believe that, because they treasure the artists that they have, but
it's also very different. I kind of think American comics are somewhere between French comics. Oh, this is very general. I appreciate somebody's going to say, "Oh, no, about this," but this is a very generalization. So you've got the rich, detailed bande dessinée album art in France and Belgium, and you've got the very sort of perhaps a panel or two on a page, flashy, kinetic art of manga, and then we kind of American comics anyway kind of lay somewhere between the two, don't they?
I agree. Yeah.
So it's very different, and you're right. It's very cultural, and God bless them, the French. They're standing their ground, And I have to say, if there was a big argument, where are the greatest comics made in the world? I think France would have a fucking good argument.
Good case to.
Yeah.
But how would you go about saying we're not going to entertain this? I mean, they seem to be playing devil's advocate. They seem to be on the losing foot there, because there's a whole centre built to manga.
Yeah. And also, like, if you look at it from a business perspective, it's supply and demand.
Exactly.
If their comments are born of frustration.
We're not going to put these. You're not going to be able to buy these books from our place anymore. Someone's going to be like, well, I can make a lot of money just importing these, and get them, so they'll get them from somewhere else.
I mean, I can totally understand the frustration. Totally.
Yeah.
It's like what are you going to do? I mean.
I heard it. I'm going to say I heard it from two publishers, and I heard it from maybe two or three other people. Not one definitely was said in booze, but also it's interesting, because I love their scene, and I think I texted you both. I actually genuinely got quite emotional on day one of the convention, because I wish we could be that in love with comics here. I really do, but. God bless them. The French are. There is. I mean, there's this element to me as well, but they can be summed up as being occasionally quite snobbish. Let's put that. That's me being as nice about that.
That's been fair, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And so, whilst they had this sort of militant attitude towards the influx and invasion, as they would see it, of manga, they also, interestingly, got into conversations with me about. Kind of is more directed at the American scene, but I take it to contain the British scene, and it was all so. In summation of a long couple of conversations I had over dinner and at a table, what they're saying is French people care about their comics. They care about what they call the ninth arts. They care about the beauty and the story and the legend that is their comics. And it seems that the British Americans care about arguing on social media.
Surely not.
Yeah,
surely
what a weird.
Not.
Where did that come from? The blue, yeah.
I'll tell you what, Tony. If you want to have an argument about that, let's take it to social media. Let's prove them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that I was just watching a Perch video when he was saying about the fact that the comic creators over the week and weekend were talking more about that girl filming herself in the gym than they were the comic events which are running now. And I don't really go on Twitter to look at a lot of. I don't read any of that stuff because they don't talk about it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I had a better conversation, a more in-depth conversation about the recent events in Spider-Man, because this bloke purposely had the English language Spider-Man Marvel app to read them with a Frenchman than I have in years with anyone in the UK.
Right,
and he's reading it in a second language.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the Green Goblin and the Golden Glide, this sort of thing. He's talking to me about it. I'm loving it. I'm thinking, I don't know anyone at the moment.
Talk about this.
Yeah. So there's not a lack of love about it, but they do say, "What are you doing?" It's like that with them.
Yeah. Just as in like in complete mystified. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Why don't you? And they're opening books and going, "Look at this, though. Look at it." I'm going. You got me, man. I agree with you. This is the most beautiful thing. I mean, I bought about 5 albums in French. I cannot fucking read. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just because I absolutely love the art.
He can't read French, or maybe he's just like completely down himself. There.
Yeah.
But
like, I can, you can make it. Some of them you can make it. You can read a Hergé comic, can't you? But some of them you're like, no, I've got no clue, but it looks amazing.
I don't want to touch on all that nonsense, talk about stuff, but like that wasn't brought to the table by the kind of hardcore comic fans, if you know what I mean, that we've just been reading for years and years and years.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah,
and I kind of feel like nowadays the people kind of like harsh and gatekeeping, but there's so many bad faith actors that just come into hobbies now where I see people getting on and having fun just to fucking wreck it, and then they move on to the next thing. And they've got no interest in it; they just want to wreck it. And
I think you're totally right, man. I think the problem here was that as a group and a community of people, a country of people who love this comic, that's what they think we're doing. So they don't see the silent majority of comic readers who go into the shop with me and buy comics every week and read 30 comics a week, and they don't see them. All they see is the embarrassment. People. And also they think that these people are so stupid they can't understand the likes of Christoph Beck and Leo and all these sort of people, because they just don't have the brains, because all they're interested in is arguing about She-Hulk or something. She-Hulk was the one that was quoted to me twice, actually, as being, what is this nonsense about?
I can't. What can you say to that? I mean,
but
that's an outsider looking in with nothing in the game, but what they're observing is
but someone who loves it as well, someone who's in love with the medium. It is all the same medium, The interesting thing I took as well is they're very into what's new and what's coming out and what's current. So all of the stalls and the tents and stuff were the last few years of comics. So I was thinking about that. I was trying to sort of think what was hot, the new hot books. I made a list of a few little things. And it's not Carthago, which was a book that we, thought was hot a few years ago. I didn't really see that. But where I did see it, there's a flea market shop. It's like a warehousey shop. You go in and there's all these shops linked. Yeah. Like a sort of second-hand market kind of area.
Yeah.
And I managed to find that because it wasn't on any maps. And that was all the old stuff, the Michael Valiant and, this sort of thing, Tarzan and, all these sort of old books. But none of them were super expensive. It was always like, like €5 each or something.
Okay.
I just wish I had a bigger suitcase. So it tends to be more of, they keep up to date with it. They're reading like whatever volume Thorgal's on now. It's like fucking 50 or something. There was like hundreds of them on one shelf. There was literally a pile from the floor to sort of eye height of the new Thorgal. Which when you look at it is, to us, to some, not to me and you guys probably, but to some American comic readers, they're going, well, that looks a bit like it's from the 50s or something, but they're eating it up, man, because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we had that thing a couple of months ago, was it, when they're saying, "Oh, look, Bond Destiny, that's where it's at," and from like an American creator, and it's like, man, it's like this scene's been around for fucking ages.
Yeah,
and you should be getting on it.
Yeah, I've made a little list of the different tents, and I thought that might be an interesting, so you can you can sense the scale of it. So if like we said, if we describe it as a town that's the size of, I don't know, Colchester or somewhere. There was these different tents. So there's the main tent one with all the publishers in, what I've just mentioned. But the tents are thematic in a way, if you think of them like that. So you've got the mainstream one, and then you've also got one which is, I would say, it's where Fantagraphics, Drawn and Quarterly, No Brow, those sort of companies would have tables.
Okay.
And that's in itself like a whole street. And you go in there, and it starts with the bigger companies, and there's this big central area. You can walk around it. And then it weaves off like an alleyway that gets sort of smaller and thinner, and right at the end of there are the smaller publishers. So that and that's where the sort of more indie stuff is, more underground. And
what are the French kind of underground comics like? Are they very similar to the stuff like you get them from the States?
They're certainly like that. Yes, they do have a reverence for that. Some of them, but we'll talk about in a minute in relation to the signing I did, but they're very much that scene. Right. There was I can't remember the name of it now, but there's actually an underground building, underground, overground, if you see what I mean, the One Balloon Free, but which has the what would probably be what would you call it, a zine fair? Do you know what I mean? and that was down by the train station. I didn't really get a proper look in there, but that was more like lino prints and small zines and that sort of thing there. So there's almost like a separation there. It seemed to me that in this indie tent, the production values were higher, put it that way. Breakdown Press had a stall there, various people. And that was the one that sort of me and Sam sort of haunted, really. That was our favourite place to go, as that was the people we would be looking for. But saying that, on the train there was a lady sat next to me on the train who was making her own comic. She was folding this comic up and putting it into matchboxes. And that was her comic. So I guess she was in that sort of zine fair bit. Otherwise, I didn't see her properly for sale.
Matchboxes, bloody hell.
Oh, no, we were watching her make it. Yeah. But there you go. So you've got that. You've got a kids' tent. You've got a couple of those, actually. You've got it's almost like the cathedral, if you go in there. In fact, I ended up chatting to the guys on the door there because they were like super friendly and had great English. And that's the one that had all the sort of kids' workshops, little bit of a book market in there. Like a little area where someone do a talk, and so there was that. I mean, that one is the size of True Believers, just that one, you know.
Wow.
You had various talk halls, various exhibitions spotted all over the town. You had the manga tent. You had the museum, Angoulême, which was the one that had the Ikigami and Druye. Manga had its own building. You had 2 cinemas. And then you had the one that I stuck a load of pictures on the Slack from, which was the OA tent. And that was that's like looking at the OA at New York, but with a European feel. And at the back of that, you had an exhibition. I think it was nice to see. Do you remember the Spectators book we reviewed in the first year from Nobrow by Victor Hussnow? Hussnow's not a small deal in there now, you know? He had a couple of pages up that were next to Leo had some pages up, and Breccia, and that was the tent. There's like a Mobius stall that sells notebooks of Mobius and the hardback collections and stuff like that. There's a Hergé stall in there, and then there's all these massive binders, and you can look through artwork. But I'll tell you, probably cheaper than American sales as well, I'm going to say.
Okay.
I have a look on the Slack, but there was a couple of pages there by some great artists, and they were only like €150. I was extremely tempted. Had it not been the fact that I got to push my suitcase all across Paris and then load, under about 400 other suitcases on the Eurostar, I might have thought about it, you know. So the OA tent was great, but you got to couple into that the fact that everyone is in on the game. So, for example, as you come up the hill, there's like a furniture shop on the corner. And it's got a load of posters and, drawings on the windows of Asterix.
Nice.
Stuff like that. And there was an optician's with a sort of a mini Hergé thing in the window. And, everyone is in on it.
It's like the lakes, like cranked up to 100.
Well, the lakes are quite open about basing themselves on it. Yeah, it's the daddy, it really is.
It's got nothing to do with what they're flogging, but it's like, look, come on, got Asterix. Fucking glasses in here, are they? Yeah, I know.
Come in for the glasses. You look like the Thompson twins.
Surely you could do an offer on reading glasses for that weekend.
Yeah, good shout, man.
There you go.
Yeah, good shout. So you got that. So everything is in on the game. I went for lunch, so I had to do. This is impossible. I don't know how I managed it, but on the Friday, Sam had to go off to a meeting, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go. And I'm knackered. I'm going to go and have a coffee and a sandwich somewhere." And it's impossible to find it somewhere. And it's a town of restaurants everywhere.
Or is it still jammed up?
Just jammed, yeah. So I found one, and they sat me right in the back of this place, and it had a load of I don't know if you know Lestrange. So Lestrange was Marvel for decades. When I was a kid, we used to go to France to get bored, and it would be the X-Men in French and stuff like that.
Right, okay.
And all the covers were lovely covers or painted covers, and it had all the covers on the walls, and the menu had superheroes on it.
And,
nice. Sort of thing. So everywhere was in on it. The Indian restaurant we went to had clearly rented an empty premises opposite and put a load of tables in there because they knew they're going to make a fucking bomb during the convention, Yeah. So it's literally everywhere you go is in on the game. Posters on the side of walls, things tied to lampposts, new statues.
It sounds fantastic. The whole kind of
yeah. It's just brilliant, man. And then. So that's the sort of layout. Do you get that? Is there any question?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Thursday, Croafunding, who are guys who stock some of our comics, Xavier from Lille, is stocks us, and he said, "Well, I've got a table," and for years he's been doing a fanzine about comics, which you'll hear about in the interview in a minute. But he's also started stocking small press, and he got some of our stuff in. And he said, "Oh, are you out? Would you want to do a signing on the Thursday?" I'm like, "Oh God, so that's a heavy burden, all these fucking amazing people, and you've just got me along." But he's super. He's like, man, we had a fucking such a laugh. So we did the signing. You'll hear an interview from him in a minute. But we did the signing, and we're next. And in fact, we were 3 tables down from the people we were sharing the bed and breakfast with. So it was like a nice little line of people we knew, It was honestly the funniest. Sam came around and we just laughed, and I signed a few comics. I think we sold 5 or something, But it was the nicest afternoon. And then he said, "Well, we're all going for dinner. I've booked a table. Do you want to come along?" So I went along with him and his buddies who were from the table next to him, and with him and a bloke called Chad Billiou, who you'll hear about in a minute, who's an American dude living in Amsterdam. And we sat there, and it was the funniest night ever. We just laughed all the way through the night to the point, when it's like to the point where we've got to do this every Thursday, every Thursday of Angoulême, like that sort of thing. And we just laughed away through it. And then I went back and saw them again on the Friday, and we had a sort of a chill there. But it's like I say, man, it's just the love of comics. Looking at the table of people at that dinner, racially, everyone was different. There was a mix of sexualities at that table, a mixture of nationalities, but the thing we all had in common is like comics. Yeah.
It's always been to me a really kind of an accepting kind of not hobby, but just anyone's welcome. You know what I mean? I always thought it was like that.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I thought it always was and always is.
Yeah.
So we did that. Because Sam was at some highfalutin dinner, and then I had to go and we only had one key, didn't we, between us to get in and out of the bed and breakfast. So I had to go and find him, and I was sort of trolling about the town trying to figure out where he was, and he weren't answering his phone. I eventually found the hotel he was in, and I sort of sat in the hallway like absolutely knackered, thinking, "Thank God I'm somewhere warm," because it was freezing. And sat there and read about 4 comics and just waited for him to finish, and then we sort of trolled back to the hotel. But even like that, the hotel, you go in the hotel, there's like standees, cardboard standees of all the characters in all the doorways, by the lifts. As you enter, they've got all the brochures and stuff. It was amazing. So I think it was Glen A or Casterman or someone was having a big meal, and he got invited to, because I ended up like trolling it with my mates, but we ended up having a fucking top laugh. Do you know what I mean? It was like one of those sort of nights. But fucking cold. See, last time we went, it rained non-stop. But this time, fucking cold. And it was slightly embarrassing because me and Sam had the same clothes on. And we also both had woolly hats. And we had to take it in turns to wear woolly hats because we would look like a proper couple of sort of hipster, the Thompson twins wearing.
Like you walked in from a Wes Anderson film or something like that.
Yeah. Laurel and Hardy. But it's good, man. I have to say, as we all do, I suppose, occasionally we go, I'm sick of this crap, man. This like non-stop dog eat dog biting at each other nonsense. And it really instilled it in me. I had a moment where I think Sam had gone off for a meeting. I said, I'm going to go get a coffee. And I sat in this coffee shop, surrounded by people reading comics, and thought, and just dragged out the stuff I'd bought already and read it. And I thought, this is amazing. Just incredible.
This is what he wants to be about all the time.
They got it going on, man. They really have. Yeah. People have been telling this for years, haven't they? I wish it was like France, and we're like, yeah, but we're okay. Yeah, man, we're fucking behind the game so far. I
don't think it's a position where we can ever get to that point. Do you know what I mean? It's
there needs to be a major cultural shift. Just because of the way that I'm just speaking for the UK, the way that the UK has viewed the art form and the way it's
and lost its view of it. We've lost it,
it's totally I don't know about you. It's not going forward.
No. For a long time, even though there's all these people fighting the good fight, it's been seen as a joke which is, or like it's a punchline for something, or for kids, or things like that.
Or it's niche.
And once you've dug yourself into that ditch for 50 plus years,
how do you get out?
Yeah.
I made a few notes of some of the hotter books out there.
Okay,
go for it.
I thought maybe stuff that's coming. So a lot of people have been asking us what's happening with Europe Comics. All it is they've just stopped their sort of convention going and public facing stuff. They're still translating and putting books out.
Okay, that's good.
So hopefully a lot of this will come to us. Spiru's still hot. That's the magazine and the character that's sort of kids character. You saw that was nice actually, because Thursday you would literally see buses of kids like pouring off and going into a lot of the things. And in the main publisher's tent right at the back is the Spiru thing, and there's all the kids are coming out. Spiru's got this like little beret thing, and they all came out wearing those like cardboard versions of it and stuff. So it's good to see. Still an awful lot of Asterix love actually. I think as kids, I don't know what you two guys were like, but as kids you were either a Tintin or an Asterix kid, weren't you?
Yes.
And I was more of an Asterix kid, and I think my sister was more of a Tintin. So I did read it, but I was kind of reading.
I was an Asterix kid, and it's normally it's depending on the drugs you get fed, isn't it? And in my primary school, on the small shelves that had like a collection of storybooks and stuff, there was Asterix. There wasn't any Tintin. It was just Asterix. So I immediately, the image of him uppercutting Roman soldiers out of their sandals is just ingrained in my brain forever.
I've got a story about that. When I got into Asterix, that was bloody. My mum had to go out for some reason, so I got dropped off like this youth club, and there was like loads and loads of kids there. And I didn't fucking know anyone, and they all seemed older than me. So like there was a bunch of comic books and stuff, and I went over and I think I read like 2 or 3 Asterix like for an hour or 2.
Oh, that's nice.
Didn't speak to anyone.
Who's that weird kid in the corner?
A great night. That sounds like a great night.
I'm just going to read these.
Yeah. Sam said that to me at one point. He says, "Oh, do you want to come? I've got to go to this thing." I said, "Mate, the most pleasant thing I can possibly think of at the moment. I'm so tired. I just want to sit in a cafe, drink coffee, and read a comic." Yeah. So even now I'm like that, Yeah. Tintin, not as much. Now, there's obviously this problem. I know EOC have just done an episode on it, but there's certain sort of racial stereotypes that appear in Tintin that are probably considered to be offensive these days, but may or may not have been back when he did them. I think they probably even then would have been fairly fucking insulting. Yeah. And Hergé has got a reputation of being a man of many different factors. He was arrested for being a collaborator with the Germans. But I think eventually found not guilty of that. And also, he's been a bit backwards and forwards on belief systems and philosophies and styles. So there wasn't as much Hergé there, although there is a statue of him right in the centre of the town. He was in a banner, and there's also noticed that one of the stores has a young Tintin line coming out. So I'm not sure how popular that is, but it's interesting.
Hey, isn't he quite young anyway?
Well, yeah, this is more sort of. He looks very kiddie. He almost looks like Calvin and Hobbes age,
Day Out or something like
that. Yeah. It's good to see that Enki Bilal is still hot. There's still a lot of stuff about him. There was a book called Bug. I think there were some pages from that. La Terre. I'm not going to do this because I got the piss taken out of me for doing this when we're away. Where you try and say French things and you try and say them with a slightly French accent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm terrible. It was embarrassing. But La Terre Vagabonde, which is by Christophe Beck, who I know we've talked about previously on here. He's done quite a lot of writing, sci-fi stuff. A book you might like, Vince, is called Elves. So ELFES. And I think it's up to like 40 volumes now. And it's sort of a fantasy series. Looks lovely.
I think I've keep going because I think
You think you've had that from
I've seen that
Europe
somewhere.
Comics maybe.
I've seen that. Go on. Carry on.
Yeah, it's good. It's very strong visually. It was great to see them. So there's very little American comics. So there was one stall that was kind of like the DC comics for France. Can't remember the name of it now, but they had lots of Batman stuff. They had some Superman titles and stuff like that as well. But there was a massive part of their stall was Department of Truth. Like literally, I stuck a picture on Twitter. I didn't stick a picture on Twitter. I sent it to Martin. And he said, "Oh my God, I've just seen this. I wish I was in Angoulême." And he stuck it out. And like just masses of hardbacks. They're treated so well. The way they treat the way they package them is just so lovely. For example, there's some Conan books that are just like would you to die for. Like massive, oversized, hardbacks with just amazing art, and so which is what you want on a Conan book. Yeah.
God, yeah. Is that the Conan the Cimmerian? Is that the?
I'm not sure. So the Cimmerian is the book that we've read, isn't it? That they've been putting out.
Yeah.
Blaze, I can't remember now. But this, I'm not sure if it was the same one. If it was, it may have been some in the future that we haven't seen yet. But it was called Conan, so maybe that's legal in France, because I know the Cimmerian is for licensing reasons. I'm guessing in the States. So whether they're allowed to call it Conan, but it definitely said Conan on the cover.
Right. Okay.
So I'm not totally sure about that. A big one was, believe it or not, was Berserker, the Keanu book.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of publicity going on for that one. Yeah, big push on that one. So there was
interesting.
Posters in windows and stuff like that, and on street signs and things for that. And I think that seems to be doing quite well.
That gets I don't say gets a lot of grief, but people were kind of a bit funny about that, weren't they?
Yeah, because they kickstarted it.
I mean, yeah. You sent on the story earlier, didn't you, about a kind of a bigger company that's kickstarted a book?
We'll discuss that at another time.
Never going to see that money again.
Yeah, maybe not. That's what people are saying. The new Thorgal, that was, as I said before, that was very popular. There's a new sci-fi series called Argo, which looks really nice. There's one that's absolutely everywhere, is a boat, and it was in the train station, and it's called Hoka, which is a Native American book it's not manga, but it's got slight touches of manga in the art, and it's oversized, quite thick hardcover, and that's been pushed quite a lot. And I think it's a historical book, it's one of those sort of things.
Yeah.
What else was there? Leo's still massive. I'm a massive fan of Leo. I particularly like his art, although there is a static quality to stuff like the Survivors. What else did he do? Beetlejuice. He did. What was it? And did he do something Dimension? Anyway, so he's got 2 new books out. I did Namibia, those books as well. But he's got a new book out called Scotland, which is a story about Scotland. And he's got another book that he's just written, but the artist is very similar to him, called Demain, which is Tomorrow in French. And it's one of the strongest covers. I literally bought it because I just love the cover on that one. So he's still massive. I bought a book of his, and what they do is they put a sticker on the back of it, and they give you like a little plastic credit thing, like a little coin made out of plastic, and that's so you can then go and stand in the queue to get him to draw in it, because you can prove that you bought one at the convention. And so I thought, oh right, she just surprised me with it, and I went, oh okay, so. I went to look for the Leo queue, and it was fucking miles, man.
Yeah, I can.
For anyone he draws in every comic, I thought, I'm going to be here for 4 hours. I ain't got time. So there's that. There's a book called Sillage, which is a sort of sci-fi book. It's getting a big push. What else was there? Noir Burlesque by Marini. He's that's still quite hot. I saw Marini there. Enrico Marini. He was there signing. He was in the OA tent, which I think is the sort of tent you go if you're like, they think you're like the governor. Do you know what I mean? Right. There was a few people drawing in there, so he was in there sketching. Taboo is had the sort of one of the big stalls in the central area in the sort of indie tent, and they do the proper, erotic comics, and it's all like Carthage and the Romans and all this sort of thing. And there must have been 6 artists all drawing at the same time in there, and there's massive queues for them. So, God bless the French; they don't care if you think they're a bit of a perv. I'll just go and buy stuff. Me, I'm like, it's like looking at a porn magazine in a newsagent's when you're fucking 14 or something. It's a bit embarrassing. Just go and open a book and look at it. Oh my god, what they think of me? You know what I mean? But the Frenchmen, they didn't care. They just
zero Fs.
Yeah. There's a book called Aurora, also by Christophe Beck and Stefano Raphael, which is produced by Soleil. Soleil's worth if you want. If you can go to Comixology, bring yourself to do it. Go to Soleil and have a look at their books, because to me, that's where I kind of live in bande dessinée. It's the adventure, sci-fi, fantasy kind of area with some detective stuff, and the real hardcore, beautiful beady eyes here. I think Soleil do really well on that. And they were the ones who were handing round beer mats, and the cover of the main character was on the beer mat from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's got a bit of I don't know. It's almost like an American style to it, but you can tell it's a larger size album. Yeah, I think that's all the ones I made a note of. Yeah, I already mentioned the Thorgal, didn't I? Yeah, yeah. There's I mean, that's probably what I noticed. You know, the thing is as well is if you walk around, there was probably 5 magazines that you can pick up for free that are just sort of adverts and interviews with people. Telerama was one of them. Le Point. There's a Spiru magazine which has got comics in it. Zoo, which is like reviews and small amounts of comics in it as well, which was free. And Canal BD, Le Mag. And in it they have what's hot, what's new, what's coming, and then they'll have like a small section of the comic in there as well. And people just walk around handing them out. You know, there was a manga. I think it was Manga Zoo. It's called as well, which is kind of a manga version of it as well.
Okay.
Which has 10 pages sample of a comic in it, and you get it for free. In fact, a big chunk of all the stuff I bought back was free.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's just that sort of convention, you know.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I love getting free shit at convention.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I said that to Sam. I said I'm just going to walk around I've seen a bit. I'm just going to walk around the rights tent because I want to steal stuff. You know, so I got a free pen. Yeah, and this sort of thing, Hong Kong comics written on it or something. And I was super excited.
I'm just going to steal stuff. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. The French, God bless them again, they don't suffer fools, you know. But be prepared for people to push in queues. You know, we English, we love to queue, don't we?
Man,
yeah.
So
you just be standing there waiting for everyone to come out of a door so that 3 or 4 of you can go in a door and someone will just walk in. You know, there's a lot of that goes on. You kind of got to bite back a bit of like, for fuck's sake, mate, what are you doing?
I find that. I remember being like at a water park in France on a school trip, and like you're queuing up this great big like hill to get to the top of the slide, and like the French kids just running up the side to the top of the hill, and it's like every fibre you're being is an Englishman's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of when it comes to comics, I kind of like their sort of immense confidence in the fact that their comics are the best. I kind of admire it. It's a national pride in their comics. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Macron didn't turn up. I think he did turn up when we were there the previous year, but the Minister of Culture or something turned up to go and see the Drouillet exhibition. If you guys haven't seen Philippe Drouillet's art, fucking hell. I did the very wise thing of looking at all the hot stuff that was going to be there and ordering books before I left so that the English language versions, so they'd be there when I got home. This is like, quite wise, folks, if you're going to fill your suitcase. So I had a couple of Drouillet books. I knew I was going to go to the exhibition. I knew everyone would be talking about him. And I thought, right, I'm going to order a couple in English language. I got a bit like over enthusiastic about Thorgal on the train. And Sam got on, and it's over. Yeah, on the way home. And Sam was going, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm glad you just spoke to me because you just stopped me ordering 10 volumes of Thorgal for like 85 quid off Amazon, you know, on the way home. Because I sort of, why didn't I pick up that volume? You know, I was getting that. And they're still sat in my to buy pile in the Amazon app, you know.
Oh, man, I get that fucking all the time. Like, you just think, oh, steady on. It's the hold. Like, it's gone fucking nuts and bought a lot of stuff.
I know. It's mad, isn't it? But go and look at Philippe Drouillet's art. I read, what did I read of his yesterday? I read The Night, which I hadn't previously read before. And his art is, you know the old 11x17 boards, you know, the art boards, turn it on its side and then stack one on top of the other. And that would be one of his smaller pages. So just incredibly detailed, incredibly beautiful. Love it. And just seeing it there. I'm one of these twats who walks around exhibitions taking loads of photographs of them, you know. Because I don't want to forget this one. Oh, look at this one, you know. I want to send that to the boys. It's a bit like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Fucking sounds like you'd had an absolutely fucking fantastic time.
Plus, they drink like the Queen Mother out there as well. Yeah.
Is it not like just what kind of drink with this wine? That's like
mostly wine. Yeah, mostly wine and beer. There's the black the Chien, the something, I can't remember what it's called, the Noir Chien or Chien Noir or something, which is the Black Cat bar, which was the one that they all used to go to. But somehow they've turned that into the restaurant now. So all that's happened is all the bars that surround it, everyone just stands in the street freezing, drinking wine and beer outside of those places. And it's like you go there and you know everyone. You know,
awesome.
But I had dinner with Sam one night, and then he went off to meet some people. I went off to meet some people, and I think even more was drunk. You know, and it's like you still got then that mile walk back to down the hill back to your hotel. You know, it's like that.
Do you sober up by the time you get home? Or
I didn't have much to drink out there, man. Yeah. But I can imagine some people doing that cold. Yeah.
Man, it must be hard. Like, if you've got like a 3-day event and you're on your feet all day, and then you're drinking in the evening, and then you're at it again for 3 days. You'd be like, oh,
yeah. And this is a 4-day. I mean, it's a 5-day if you're a pro, because the Wednesday is the pro day. So on the Wednesday, if you're you've got a pro pass or you've got a table, you can get into all the exhibitions early.
Right.
So I was speaking to a couple of the guys, and they'd been to see the Drouillet on the Wednesday because they let them in early. And even they were saying it was packed.
It's good because obviously you kind of struggle with. If you're kind of at that show to go and see stuff. So it's good that they've got a day to give you like that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's like, do you remember when LCAF was going? And what LCAF did is, as soon as say, for example, the event closed at 6, they would have put beer on for the people who had the tables so that they could go around and shop from the other tables after 6, between 6 and 8 or something. I think that's a great idea as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we never get to see stuff, do we? When we're stuck at a table talking to people like Punisher.
No,
yeah.
You never get to go around.
Yeah.
There you go, guys. I've got,
man, that's awesome. Yeah, love it.
Ranted on there.
But you
not at all.
You did manage to get a bit of audio as well, didn't you, Tony?
I did. Yeah. So God bless him. One of the funniest people you will meet is Xavier. And he runs Croafunding, which is they do a magazine called Trace as well. They do this. He has this shop in Lille. He explains how he came to have this shop in the interview, so I won't ruin it. But he's the one who contacted me and said, "Do you want to come? Would you be able to come and do the signing?" And I was like, very honoured, and went down and immediately felt at home. And we had a real meeting of minds, me and the guys around there, and we just laughed the whole time. And he's very behind the small press indie scene. And he's got this shop that sells, that's nearly all that it sells. So I thought I'd do an interview with him just as a little thank you. And also it might be somewhere that people want to be in contact with and want to have a chat with. And he's all about that. You know, he's a very social animal. He does Thought Bubble every year. We met him at Thought Bubble. I don't know if you remember, guys. He had sort of a trolley. Yeah. And he came around and was telling us all about it. And he met quite a few people there. He's got a lot of English stock in there. The one thing he does refer to in this interview that I think is worth mentioning is he calls them mute comics, but what I would call them is silent comics. And he says, think about doing that. Think about having a silent comic every so often if your style works that way.
Because then there's no need for translation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good shout, you know.
Yeah.
So some comics suit it, some don't, but you know. Yeah. Anyway, here he is. Xavier, a little interview with him. It's only 10 minutes, but have a listen. He's a chuckle. We've got to hear. Okay, I'm here at Angoulême, with Xavier Lancel. Is that a good pronunciation?
Yes, that's perfect.
There is another name. We're keeping it between ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. A secret name. You only know it.
Well, we're fresh off. It's Friday morning. We're fresh off a big night out. We had a big meal last night, didn't we? About 8 of us, I suppose.
The name that was Le Lion Rouge.
That's it. Yeah. What a great place. Really good.
Yeah. Amazing Italian food and a lot of space and so much fun.
Yeah, quite hilarious, wasn't it? Yeah, there was a lot of mucking about. Yeah. Good. Now, is it your 14th Angoulême?
Probably. I don't count anymore. I've been there every year except since 2009.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So this is mostly for your book. You bring out a magazine, which is a bit for us, for English speakers, is a bit like a sort of Tomorrow's magazine called Scarce. Did you want to just mention what that's about?
Yes, that's one of the oldest fanzine about US comics, not connected to any news. We are trying, in fact, to produce kind of an encyclopedia of comics. So we choose one subject per issue. We release one issue whenever we can, and it has been 40 years now. We started in 82, and we are at issue 93. The last issue was on Spider-Woman.
Yes, we did have a giggle about the Michael Fleischer tying up Spider-Woman a lot. Issues, yeah.
There is all the backstory about the Michael Fleischer run is really astonishing.
Now, I'm going to say we first met at Thought Bubble a couple of years ago when you have started this venture of yours, which is a shop. Did you want to talk about how long it's called Croafunding? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Croafunding, because in France, when the cry of the frog is croix, so that's kind of a silly name, but there is a big frog in front of the entrance of the library, so everybody remembers the frog, so it works.
Yeah.
And that's the first bookshop of its kind, only selling creator-owned and self-distribute, self-produced comics, zine, card games, often founded on Kickstarter, Ulule, which is a French version of Kickstarter, those kind of websites.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And it has been going on for 1 year and 2 months now and going well.
Oh, right, is it that new? I didn't realise. So when I met you, you were sort of just getting ready for the opening, I'm guessing.
Yes. In fact, it was only 10 days before the opening, and I was in a rush because I had not a lot of books. So I was, oh God, I have to find amazing books, so I'm going to go to Source Bubble and find creatures.
Oh, right, okay, which is why I remember you had like a wheelie suitcase you were dragging around.
Yes. It dies recently because I moved out and it got crushed. But yeah, that was an amazing makeup suitcase. Everybody was
makeup style.
Professional makeup suitcase, which is really practical.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So while you've normally been at Angoulême with Scares, this is a whole new project now. So you're now sort of branching out, and it's your full-time job, I'm saying?
Yes. So Scares was only and always a charity job. I mean, nobody's paid. And Croafunding, this is my main job. I quit my previous job, so this is my bookshop, my full-time day job, and yes.
Yeah, because you were telling me about your previous job, and you used to work in a hotel, and I think there's a comic there, my friend, but you refused to write it. I need to hear that story.
Yeah, I worked 20 years in the hotel business and got in a pretty big fight against my final boss, and I sued him. And the trial had been going on for 8 years and ended 2 years ago, and with the money of the trial I was able to open the bookshop.
Wow, I didn't realise that. Oh, interesting. Oh, cool. So what's would be interesting to our listeners is it's not just French language comics you stock, but also English language and anything else. I know you've got some Dutch comics in, but they're English languages.
Yes, so I have either the French language, of course, English language, because of course with the experience of Scares I wanted to have a section with English comics, and it works very well. I also have some mute comics. For example, I just came back from Greece and I found some mute Greek comics, so you can sell it very easily because it's mute.
Easy for a foreign rights market.
Yes. And in fact, there is a funny story about that, because when I met Jonathan in Source Bubble, he has a mute comics, and you only have the back page, which is in English, and he said, oh, I have to find a French publisher for that. And I was like, what? But it's all mute. You're not going to give money to a French publisher to publish the same thing that you have here. And in fact, it has been one of my big sellers in the shop.
Oh, cool.
Because even people who don't, often they go to the English section, and then I say, oh, it's all in English, and they're like, oh, sorry. But I say, oh, but look, you have a Joe Latam mute book here, so it sells very, very well.
Oh, nice work.
It's in the commercial sense, everybody should do a mute comics at one point.
Yeah. I think there's a big business in silent comics, and we love them because you see them in the rights tent all the time. We're thinking, this is a given. We don't need to get pay translators. That's great. Yeah. So how have you found this year so far? Because we're only Friday morning, but you've been here since Wednesday, haven't you? Because it's like a pro day on a Wednesday.
Yes, because you know that often we French people, we love to do strike. So if you want to be sure to be here, it's better to come one day earlier, so that if there is a big strike on Thursday, you're not going to get...
we're getting the same, man, in England, you got to get some...
And especially here, since there is the beginning of a strike right now in France about retirement age.
Oh, okay.
So it has been going on. There was a big one last week, and there's going to be a new one next week. So we are, thank God, just between two big strikes.
Oh, right. It's good for me, because I didn't have a clue. We got off at Paris, and we're like, well, I hope it's working.
I was a little worried because I have to switch train in Paris on Sunday night, and I was like, God, if there is a strike in Paris, it's going to be horrible. But thank God, it's not going to happen.
So, did you want to give the address of your shop? So it's in Lille, isn't it?
It's in Lille. It's I-90 Rue Pierre-Mauroy, just outside the train station, and you can't miss it because there is a big frog outside looking at you, and you also can't miss it because there has been some news about the street where my bookshop is. 2 buildings just fell 2 months ago. In the morning.
People you're safe. You're safe.
Yeah, I'm safe. But it was just 150 meters from the bookshop. So when you walk, you're like, oh, what is this pile of trash? No, just 2 buildings who fell. You feel very secure.
Now, speaking of feeling very secure, I just want to talk about some of the books you've got for sale. Now, what was the thing we talked about extensively yesterday? I'm going to say it's chemical sex.
Oh, yeah. So I have, that's an amazing book by an English creator, London-based, called Head First, and it's called I and Orny. 2 issues have been released so far, and it's very graphic, and it's about, I don't think there is any comic book on this subject, chemical sex. That means people who can't have sex without using drugs in many forms, and often that's because they don't feel secure. They're not going to be as productive as they think during the sexual act, so they take drugs thinking they're gonna get really strong and productive, and in fact that's the opposite which is often the case with drugs.
Right, okay. We've heard. It was quite a funny day. I have to say, last night was fucking. I was laughing so much. I think we virtually got thrown out of the restaurant, didn't we? Because we were there too long.
At one point, a friend told me, "Oh, we can hear you laughing in the bathroom. From the bathroom of the restaurant, we can hear you."
And what else have you got in the shop that's going well, or anything you want to recommend in the shop?
Oh, the thing is that that's an amazing experience to see people entering the shop, because contrary to all the other bookshops where you enter and you know what you're going to get, in this shop people enter and they see only books that are not distributed anywhere, so they are kind in a foreign zone. And so what happened usually, I give them a coffee, we talk, and they say to me, oh, here is what I like, and I say to them, okay, here is what you should take a look at.
Right, okay.
It's very friendly.
Yeah, that's good stuff, yeah. And you're saying there's quite a scene in Lille as well. There's a big burgeoning small press scene.
Yeah, so I choose Lille because it's very close to Brussels, it's very close to London, and there is many local artists, because we try also to put artists who are not very far from the city in the shop. So we have people from London, from Brussels, and from Lille, and now they have a place where their product can be sold to people.
Yeah, real man, absolute pleasure. We did a signing yesterday where we did laugh a fucking lot, and Chad came out, Chad Billiou, who I'm going to be talking about later in the episode, but he came out with us last night, and he's signing tomorrow, isn't he? So that should go well as well.
style with the re-up.
Yes, I met him last year, and I do sell his series Chad in Amsterdam, which is an absolute must.
Right.
And he has a new book, The Re-Up, and so eager to read it. And
I read it this morning.
Oh,
I really liked it. Yeah, really good. And it's, do you know, when he said to me, it's a book about me, not him, maybe someone else being a drug dealer, I thought, when he first told me that, I thought it could be like a bit, telling people about how gangster people are, but he's such a nice guy that it's so relatable that you actually really warm to him. You know what I mean? He doesn't brag. There's nothing like that. He just says this is what happened. It's like a nice story. Yeah. And he was pretty funny last night.
Oh yeah.
We were laughing.
He's very funny.
Ate the biggest dessert I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, the desserts were so huge. I mean, I had a macaron which was like a cake.
Like a city block.
And he had, he had profiterole who looked like a castor.
Good stuff. So where can we find you? So do you do most of your business on Instagram, I'm going to say?
So on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, you only have to type Croafunding, so CROA funding, and you're going to find it. Search for the frog.
Nice work, mate. Thanks, dude.
Thanks.
Well, that was a nice extra, wasn't it?
What a nice dude. Really nice dude. And you can find him, I highly recommend what he's doing. If you go to @Croafunding, CROA funding on Instagram. And if you do go to Lil, apparently you can recognise it because there's a massive frog in the window of his shop. Yeah. It's, good
one?
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I've not heard this interview yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, cool. So he's sort of, that was one of my first shout-outs. So I guess we're doing the shout-outs now, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
Play the
should I do my next two? So just a reminder that Mr. Adam Falp has a Patreon, and you should be signing up for it. We've also got some tribute press T-shirts on the way, which I sent you the picture of. Do you remember?
Oh shit! Have I missed that?
It's just evidence of Adam trolling me constantly.
Excellent.
It's just hilarious. He says, I've made this into a T-shirt. He sort of presented it to me, which made me chuckle. My final one is tickets for Lawless are now available. Lawless is the 27th and 28th of May at the Doubletree by Hilton in Bristol, the venue of the old UCAC, Bristol Expo. And you can go, they're raising money this year for Samaritans, so you can go and help out with that. At it will be Dave Gibbons, John Wagner, Glenn Fabry, Lou Stringer. I didn't know Lou did conventions. Mick McMahon, Rob Williams, Andy Diggle, and many, many more of that. So go and get a ticket for that one. And you'll probably see some of us at that one. And I think you'll probably go that V, won't you?
Yeah. It's
Bristol, isn't it? Down the road from you, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're my shouts, guys.
Down to the road. I've got 2 Kickstarters, both former guests of the show and friends of the show. I always got to say that. It's Bullet Adventures 2 and 3, Speedy Superhero.
Oh, I got back that one. I got the email this week. Yeah.
Continuing the adventures of the second and third issues, fast-paced action, family dynamics, equal modern approach to classic superheroes. It's a lot of fun. Just as it says in the tin, classic superheroes. We've got The Gentleman Ghouls, the Apocalypse trilogy by Alfie Gallagher. Finally, a bump collection of The Gentleman Ghouls, the acclaimed comic saga, originally serialized digitally in Aces Weekly, never seen before in print, and possibly never again. Monsters of Rock, Monsters from Hell, and Half a Chance to Save the World. Go hit that now. That is brutalized its target, so that's going to make it. And the Bullet Adventures, that's just shy of its target, so that could do a little bit of love and attention.
Oh, nice one. I'll give a shout out to Aces Weekly. I'm on the Aces Weekly bandwagon.
Oh, there you go.
I'll probably report on it in a couple of weeks, but I'm really enjoying it. I think it's just really reminds me of all different comics you can read. I usually save it up for a few weeks and I go in and read a volume at a time. But some really good stuff on there. Yeah, well worth a look. And it seemingly is a bit ignored. It's not really talked about enough, but there's some UK, US, European, there's some really great creators on there that we're just not talking about much at the moment.
Is
I think it needs it.
Is that because it's been going for so long? Do you think?
Maybe, I think, yeah.
Sometimes when you're not the new hot thing, then
I think you're right, man. Yeah. But it changes. It's like digital 2000 AD in a way, without that sort of horror sci-fi centric stuff on it, although it does have that aspect to it as well occasionally. But it's just it's like an anthology that comes out and it's great. I really enjoy it. Yeah. Very accessible on the website as well. Really easy to read.
Awesome.
Okay.
Nice. Speaking of hot access, actually that sounds a bit weird, wouldn't it? I know, said it out loud. It's time to tell you what comics you should be accessing and then reading. Eh?
Very good.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, that works.
No, it doesn't work at all, but I really appreciate you supporting.
You got
We're going with it. Yeah.
Salesmanship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Speaking of backdoor booty, here we go.
There you go.
Have you I don't know why this question just came to my head. Have you ever found like a decent stash of comics at a car boot sale?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Not often though. It depends. There's a big one near me, and I occasionally go there and find stuff. Yeah, but very rarely do I find anything decent.
I've found more in recent. It used to be like when I was younger, you could find a fair few, but nowadays not so much. I haven't been in a boot sale for a fucking couple of years now because of COVID.
It's a tricky one. They're sort of like also like the charity shop finds, which are great sometimes, but some charity shops are wise.
Pretty pricey, aren't they?
They're wise to the game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Were you saying friend of the show, Tom Curry?
He's got a little one. He sends his pictures from, and
they had a copy of Skin.
Yeah, I told him he should go and get it. I wonder if he did actually. Have to ask him.
We talked about that on the show
when we had Brendan on.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I
consider Skin to be one of the greatest comics. Literally, it's up there with the likes of Dark Knight, Watchmen, Longbow Hunters, all that sort of thing.
It's definitely held on that level for me too.
That's amazing.
One of the big British greats that kind of seems to have flown under the radar for some.
Yeah, and why isn't Milligan writing, regular comics? He seems to sort of jump about between companies, and he's one of the best writers out there.
Right. Yeah. No love.
Rant over.
No love.
From rant.
Speaking of the best comics ever.
Yeah.
I can do a bit of my ranting, so we can get all the rant out of the way and then move on.
Let's have it. Let's have it.
I was just saying to these guys before going, I had 10 comics. I didn't have 10 comics earmarked to read, but I'm like, right, I've backed all these comics on Kickstarter, or I've bought them on social media with people saying in various comics groups, I've got this comic for sale. And I said, okay, let's get a copy of this. And looking through them, like all of them, fantastic artwork, the presentation, the production values of it, lovely. Like most of it on par with one of the big two, just professional, really well done.
Yeah.
And then we start reading them, and the writing is fucking awful, just awful. Like it just doesn't. The first, if you're giving this to an editor or someone with a bit of something who knows a little bit, straight away they'll be like, well, here's a problem straight away here. And majority of them, they all start the same. Stuff just starts happening. And it's like, where am I? What are these people? What's going on? I don't...
Yeah.
There's no frame of reference here. There's no setup. You need a bit of something to bring you into it. And it's different because these kind of comics I'm reading are very kind of like action-based or superhero-based. Where if it was a more kind of like surreal comic, obviously that's not relevant. But there's one with the artwork, I really enjoyed it. I don't want to kind of say names. And it was like set on a boat blasting through the sea. And there's these people on board, they're torturing, trying to get information out of. And it's like, who are these people? What are they doing? Is this in the future? Everyone's a cyborg. I don't understand.
Everyone's a cyborg.
Yeah, they've all got cyborg bits, and they're talking about someone they're trying to get information about. And for what reason? Why?
I mean, we've had a conversation previously about this, and I think artists have to put their hours in, don't they, to be someone who can represent art and sequential art and you name it. They really have to put their time in, to do the work. Yet seemingly there's a lot of writers out there who, I think I'll make you right on this, Dan, because you said this earlier to me, who've seen a Marvel movie, read a couple of comics, and think they can write a comic. And it's not that simple.
No.
And we see this so much with, I'm seeing it a lot. I think I ranted a little bit about it last week, we're just getting people who just decide they can write a comic. And they don't know what's going on. Like you say, you've got to be invested in the character before you watch them doing things.
The basics of the structure are not there. I mean, you can have a great story, but it's the basic structure of how you set this up, introducing the characters, introducing the setting and the timeline and what's going on. Because just jumping in it's that thing again. You've got the story in your head, and it may be the next best thing since Watchmen. But unless you can translate that into like a script that people can get on board with, this also segues way to another subject I want to go to. Like, if a writer's got like he's looking to make his comic book, he's got a 21-page comic book, and he's going to pay £500 a page, which is fucking great money nowadays, I think, for a comic, depending on your level. But then you look at the script, and it's fucking terrible, awful. Would you think that's incumbent on you to think, well, okay, it's a payday, but if I attach myself to this project,
that's the gamble, isn't it?
Yeah. It's bad.
A lot of time you'll be engaged in the project sometimes before you've seen a lot of the writing. You might have seen some of it, but you might not have seen any of it.
I mean, I've totally been done by that myself. Like, I've kind of got involved in something, and then stuff started coming in. You think, fucking hell, this is like.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can work for an artist because, depending on the project and how well it goes, it's an example of them being able to do the job for hire.
Fair play, I mean?
I met the deadlines. The book came out. Yeah.
And if you get a proper reviewer who says that the art's great but the story's not right, then you're okay. But if you get a shitty reviewer who just says everything's brilliant and it's not, or everything's shit and it's not, then it doesn't do you.
Because this is also one of my main problems with, not problems with AI art, but people that saying, well, now I'll be able to make my own comic, I won't need the artist. It's like, mate, if we're getting this fucking stuff when you're paying for the artist, I dread to think the fucking
are you going to program it to,
the director's going to come out when there's no kind of filter. You can write, these kind of writers can make whatever comic they want. Mate, you're going to get flooded with just the worst shit ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been the way about small press, and we talk about the better stuff, but there's a lot of shit out there. Let's face it.
Yeah,
there is an awful lot of crap out there.
I mean,
when you come across a gem, though,
you know,
but it's like everything.
Yeah. Anyone in this world can make a comic, but not everyone can make a comic.
Yeah,
make a good comic, or make a readable comic. I think. Yeah.
But you know, if your passion's there and you're doing it, then good on you. Because
you might be writing the best fucking comic ever.
If you've made a comic and it's actually out there, well done. You've done better than a lot.
You've done.
You shouldn't stop making a comic because you've heard us do this. But what you should do is examine what you're doing when you're writing a comic.
Yeah,
you know, don't think they think we're going to be shit because I don't, no, but just look at what you're doing. Is it working?
Yeah.
You know, try thumbnailing it if you're writing it, if you're not an artist, and see if it works between panels. That's stuff I've done with artists before.
I mean, bounce it off like someone who's got a bit
an experienced artist.
And say, is this working? I mean, I've got 3 superhero comics that I've backed in the past couple of weeks that have come in, and all of them start with people getting attacked in alleys, and it's just like, man, this fucking trope has been done to death. And you think, well, Dan, what if they're doing something really kind of clever on that? They're not. It's just a straight up someone getting attacked in an alley by some gang thugs, and the superhero like appears with a moon behind him, and then suddenly they're.
I think here's my pitch to you both, stemming from this statement I'm about to say right now. I think superhero comics or superhero storytelling has a problem right now, and it's in a real kind of bad way. The most point, I'm not reading a lot of superhero comics, so I could be talking about my house.
No, I am, man. I make you right. I think the real originality and the really good storytelling is coming in other genres.
And I think, with you lovely listeners as well, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, we should do just an analysis. Makes it sound too scientific, but you know, a sort of a look at the superhero genre, not necessarily pointing out, well, this Batman's shit, or this is a poor man's Batman. You know, none of that, but to actually sort of look at it and go, okay, what works, what doesn't work, because those things you talk about, Dan, you know, it's the beat down in an alley. Not good now. It was brilliant at a time.
Yeah.
And it had its place. But like say, it doesn't work now. It just it doesn't. It doesn't. I know sometimes we loved that scene. We can all pick a scene like, oh, I love it when, you know, the Punisher did that, or Batman did that, or something like that, you know, that particular scene. We've got fond memories of probably the exact scene that Dan's talking about. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should create
twist it in some way, make it a bit different.
Don't apply yourself to a cliche, because that's what people are doing these days.
Yeah.
And it's the thing of fucking trying to. I'm going to write the next Batman and like call it Dark Cape Man or something, and it's like
Dark Cape Man fan art. Come on, listeners.
You don't need another Batman. Like you will not be able to do Batman better than that. Well, maybe we will, but
1,000 people who've written in the past.
If you think,
Frank
man,
Miller
fucking Frank Miller don't know what the fuck he's talking about, I'm going to show you what Batman's like.
Yeah,
so you're dreaming,
and especially the first person narration of like, oh, I'm so dark.
Yeah,
the night is my friend.
So,
it's like, oh, get fucked.
But there is in that CBR article I won't talk about, but like the dilution of having like a million Spider-Mans and a million this character, a million that character. It just honestly for me, it just absolutely dilutes it. The more variations you have of a character, you know, like
multiverse can go blow itself.
They start talking about all the different character Americas. It's like, man, this is fucking crap. This is just not.
If you put it like this, when someone like Led Zeppelin came out. There was loads of bands that came out like Led Zeppelin, but there's only one Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same for a lot of these characters. So I think maybe sometimes it's fun to just look at the superhero genre as well, considering that's where the three of us, that's where we come from. That's the bath water we sit in for most of it.
Yeah. I drink that bath water, my friend.
Yeah, and he's been in the bath for quite some time.
Drinking it.
I don't wee in my bath though. Yeah, those rumours aren't true.
No, but they are out there.
You get out and wee into it, but you don't.
Yeah.
Not savage.
I like the noise.
It's the cheap way to heat it up.
It only stays warm for a few minutes, doesn't it, when you do that?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tony, I don't like the smell of your new Radox.
Yeah. So that's my protracted why I
sugar butts.
My protracted why I haven't got a recommend this week.
Well, sometimes.
But he's doing the hard work.
I tried.
You
fucking tried.
Well, the thing is, this is a recommendation section of the show. You know, this isn't. This isn't a review section. We're not. You know, Dan probably could have. Let fly with the guns on pardon the pun on a couple of titles, but we're not those people. We want to recommend stuff that you should check out, not stuff that didn't jive.
Doing the hard work for you readers.
Yeah. I feel bad as well. Some fucking good dude's really worked his arse off to make a comic book. I don't feel it's right to name them, shat on them.
Yeah.
If it's for a big company, whatever, fine. But like, yeah.
Yes. So
shall I go first? I've got two.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of jam to go in between those two pieces of bread.
Slice. Yeah. So my first one is the Re-Up, issues 1 and 2. It's written by Chad Billion, art by Juliet DeWitt. It's Chad is now a buddy of mine. I've decided we've both fucking laughed so much whilst over dinner. At one point,
good. You've met then. It's not one of those. Yeah. I've decided we are friends.
We're going to be friends, and I'm going to stalk him.
That's a sociopath's way of thinking.
I'm in his garden now. Literally, we laughed so much. At one point, Chad had to say, everyone's got to stop. I can't. He was just like, it was hurting. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. We had such a laugh. So he signed on the Saturday at the Croafunding. Unfortunately, I wasn't there for that because I'd come back already. But he was definitely part of the Thursday night crew. It is possibly based around him. I think he's fairly open about it. And it covers. The covers are really good, actually. I showed you the covers, didn't I, before we came up? So they're a kind of use the old Nokia green phone screen. Are you guys old enough to have had that?
Oh, yeah,
Nokia?
totally.
Yeah. So he uses that as the central piece in two very clever ways. First issue is it sort of overlays over the top of a table that has on the table drugs and the paraphernalia you would need to sell them. So little baggies, rolled up money, a digital scale, stuff like that. And the second one, it's kind of the sign above a motel. So as you drive into a sort of, American motel, and it's got, spaces here, rooms for rent available. He's put the artist has put the screen, and in the digital, the old type that we used to have to do. You remember you used to have to press some of the buttons 3 times, didn't you? You remember to get to the H or something?
Yeah.
He's got that on the screen, and the numbers of the issues are donated by the time. So the first issue is the time on the top right-hand corner of the Nokia screen is 0101, and the second issue is 0102, so volume 1, issue 2 sort of thing. So this is quite clever, and the names of the creators are in the bottom right-hand corners of that. It's pretty good. It opens with the central character being offered a gig selling cannabis in the area of Georgetown University. Back when, because anyone who's recently been to Canada and the States, weed is now legal. Is now like Starbucks. It's now a big business. It now everywhere seemingly smells. In certain, not every state, but certain states, it just smells everywhere. And this book is told, these two comics are told in the form of narration, which is a format I like. And he had this double life going. So during the day, the central character worked in the AV department of the university, sorting out the video screens and stuff like that. And other times in the evenings, he pursued his illegal ventures in selling drugs. And this tells the story of Chad as he slowly becomes more and more involved in the sale of cannabis. And the amounts and the sizes and the weights begin to rise. It plays on all the things that you sort of think happens. So we get talk about weights, talk about the criminal business, talk about codes they use, talk about how they go about using phones, how they use little catchphrases, and it also talks about what to do when you get arrested. So he kind of, in one of the issues, he goes to a motel and his business is on the rise, and he's taking on more and more customers, more and more weight. And the guy says, "This is what you do if you get arrested. Do this on the phone." And it's kind of an instruction, and it has that bio element to it. But when I tell you that story, you might think, oh, this is a story about a guy and he's a gangster, and he's, like a true crime book these days. We always seem to be talking about how brilliant they are and, and stuff like that. But it's not like that. Chad displays the central character as being very likable. So there's stuff that really sticks out for me is there's a bit where they've had this prolonged wait in a motel room for the big consignment to arrive. And it's just arrived, and he's in amongst a load of all these people, and they're all, the Yanks call it busting their balls, don't they? They're busting each other's balls, and they're talking, and there's a bit of an atmosphere in the hotel room, and his mum rings. Yeah, so he looks at his phone and it says "mum" on it, and he doesn't say this, but you clearly think he can't answer the phone to his mum in that room, can he? Let's face it. Think of your credibility. So he puts the phone back in his pocket, and it's stuff like that really endears me to the book and the narration and the style of telling. It's he's just a normal guy. He doesn't make any excuses for it. He doesn't say, oh, I was so poor as a kid, I was forced into the life of a drug dealer, or they had my family hostage or something, or whatever. He just says, look, I did it to earn some money. And let's face it, in a country that now sells this legally, and is like, for example, if you walk through Toronto, there's more weed shops than there are Starbucks now. You could easier buy edibles than you could a cup of coffee in Toronto at the moment. And so it's now big business. It's capitalism taken over. And he just talks about it that way. The art is very straightforward. And I don't, who's the Avery Hall artist we like? Catriona Chapman. I'd compare it to something like Catriona's work, actually.
Wow.
And the artist is Juliette DeWitt. And she, I think Chad was telling me her normal job is illustrating kids' books. Which is quite interesting. But everyone is, so what she does, what I think, I guess this is written and agreed as part of the collaboration, is people who are in it, who are not the main character and not a sort of innocent party, have a little black line over their faces, as if to say this person cannot be identified. And it gives it a really interesting little touch there.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. And it's two colours, so it's black and white, and guess what the other colour they use?
Green.
Yes. Well done. Yeah, they use green. Yeah. I'm not sure what the slang is in America or Amsterdam, which is where Chad lives, but the green is very much a slang term here, isn't it? Everyone is consistent. Everyone is delineated here. You can tell who everyone is. Really good. There's also a nostalgic element to us, to us all who were, not that any of us take drugs, don't do drugs are for mugs, but there's obviously this nostalgic element to it. That was what it was like, back then, and when people did, had to buy cannabis, secretively of someone.
Is it just like the cannabis he's doing, or like, because there's different levels, isn't there? Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's coming. I can't say what he said to me, but it may change. I can't remember how many issues it gives, but this is a series. Cool. The letters, he's got like he does in the first issue, he does like a sort of commentary on the back page, and it's called The Voicemail and stuff like that. And there's a little ID of them in the back of it, Chad Billiou, born 1975. It's almost like a bit like would be a criminal record, maybe, sort of thing.
I love the little touches there, like you showed us the covers of before we started.
Yeah,
like the issue 1 and the issue 2 with like the mobile phone screen.
It's great, man. Yeah. They've obviously taken real care in presenting it as something. I think it's come as part of some kind of Dutch grant or something. I think Chad lives in Amsterdam now. I know Xavier. You'll have just heard Xavier mention it, but we've actually met Chad. Chad was at Thought Bubble, the one before last, and we met him, and he handed me Chad in Amsterdam, which I reviewed.
I remember, yes.
You remember that?
Okay.
Yeah, as you were saying this, I was thinking, I remember now.
That rings a bell.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him properly, but it was definitely it was a book that I kept that weekend. My eyes kept being sort of drawn to his
some beautiful covers on it, man. Really good. He quotes his references as Lahane, Akira, Taxi Driver, City of God, The Big Lebowski, and Juliet quotes hers as La Piscine, The Blues Brothers, The Godfather, The Exorcist, and Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace is that UK film, isn't it, about weed dealing? Do you remember that from years ago? Do you remember that one?
No.
Billy Connolly's in it, I think.
Oh, okay.
So go and get it. Chad is fucking spot on, dude. Funny, good, great company. We had a chuckle. You can go to Chad
got to be a future guest, surely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, it'd be great. Go to chadinamsterdam.nl. You can find his stuff there. So go and buy that, and you can follow, or you can go to Juliet's site at Juliet JulietDewit, Juliet DeWitt.nl. So they're both Dutch sites. But if you're in France, Croafunding have it. I think there's a lot of US shops have got his comics as well because he's from the US. He goes out there, and I think he sort of drives around and distributes it to various shops who take it on board. I suggested he contact Third Bear Press, actually, because I think that would be great for him and great for the Third Bear Press as well to get some.
That's
of
a
these
good shout.
Yeah, it's a good one. So that's my first one. The re-up issues 1 and 2. I think third's coming soon. There you go. First one.
Nice one.
Speaking of the rule of thirds, I read an issue 3 of a title we discussed last week.
Hey.
Actually. I furiously got caught up on Plush from Image Comics and 12 Gauge Comics. Doug Wagner, artist Daniel Hilliard, colorist Rico Renzi, letterer Ed Dukeshire, editor Kevin Gardner, designer Erica Schnatz. I hope I said that right. It's got some lovely variant covers in the back as well. Basically, that it's a crazy If you haven't heard us talk about this book before, Tony's mentioned 2 of the issues. Last week's episode was with the wonderful Doug Wagner, and we discussed more about the story and what goes on in that man's mind to create things like this. But it is essentially a serial killer action thriller horror comedy epic that's uber violent, uber twisted. And it's about a bunch of cannibal furries.
I haven't got to issue 3 yet, so I'm interested to hear this. I'll probably read it tomorrow, actually. Yeah.
Now, we've been saying all the way through, it is cranking up, and up. Issue 3 is kind of like a slowdown in pace, somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah, he sort of hinted at that, didn't he, when he was on?
Yeah. It's a slowdown in pace, but everything's so intense anyway. Just the whole scenario is quite intense. As Devin, the main character, is basically dragged along with this group of these serial killers in furry costumes. So issue 2 ended in a police station on this night of carnage, and this is not for the faint of heart, this book. Doug and Daniel just do amazing creative stuff in terms of the creativity with the over the top. I mean, this is popcorn, pizza, beers. This is that kind of movie night. Just fucking neon horror comedy violence, that kind of thing, but dark subject matter at the same time. There is a fire extinguisher which still looms large in the book. There is wonderful dialogue. It just continues more. Like I say, this one's a bit more of the character piece and the aftermath of what's happening. You see the main sheriff again. He comes back into it because the main sheriff left the police department to, I think I've forgotten who he was looking for now. And then the titular furries turned up and just wrecked carnage in a sort of like, like the Terminator in Terminator 1 when he turns up at the police station. Right. It's that sort of thing. And he gets back to the scene of the crime, and very much the hunt is on, but the killers themselves know that's going to happen, and it's very interesting because you see a bit more. There is a character that hasn't said much so far. Not Keebler. Keebler's the one that did a brilliant Basic Instinct moment in issue 2.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Keebler is the silent one, although you do see them in the background without their costume on.
Oh, I'm interested in that now.
I'm not spoiling it, but there's a wonderful bit of dialogue that just kind of explains that scenario without going into it. It's like just a small paragraph, like a couple of lines. Just this person's like this. That's it. You don't need to say any more.
Yes.
I have my suspicions about that. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
But okay.
But the meet cute that a lot of the story is based upon is sort of embellished a little more, and the character that is the sort of kitty cat dragon one, she steps more to the front in this one, and you go to where the cannibals live in their house, which is fascinating. There is a sort of disturbing. One of the disturbing things about it, of course, you go to their house and it's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There isn't it's nothing like that. But it's still in the artwork, you can tell it's a pretty messed up place. I mean, for instance, the kitchen's a mess. But one of the interesting things about this series, one of the things that I think is the darkest part for me, is the main character's just acceptance of it all, and he's with them now, not to the point of he's one of them, but he's just going along with it through the whole of this issue. He has another person's blood all over his face. He hasn't cleaned it. He hasn't done anything. As they're all leaving the police station at the very beginning, here's a minor spoiler. As they're all leaving the police station at the very beginning, the rest of the gang sort of leave first, and the main character, there's a character sort of tied to the chair he's got duct tape on his mouth, and the main character just sort of says, "Oh, sorry about this," and then he takes a donut and leaves with it. He goes, "Oh, great, donuts," and it's such a casual way. Do you know what I mean? Although it has that sort of amusing, "Ooh, donuts." And he picks one up and leaves with it and eats with it. But if you put it in the context of everything that's happened, that's one of the most fucked up things for me.
Do you think we're going beyond the whole sort of Stockholm Syndrome thing, which is sort of hinting at there, and going, there's a movie called Man Bites Dog. Have you ever seen it? I think it's
yes.
And they end up the film crew end up getting involved in the murders as well.
Don't
they? I wonder if it's going to be a bit like that.
That's why I wondered, is this where this is going to go? He's kind of going to get ingratiated with the group and
get a bit over enthusiastic and do a bit of murdering himself. Yeah.
I think that will be I think it'll build to a certain point where there'll be a choice to be made. It's interesting the fact that the guys have created the likable characters in this are the despicable characters,
like us.
Because all of the people that you would consider to be normal are pretty horrible. There's been evidence of it in issues 1 and 2. So they're clearly siding you with the sort of character, the darker characters, which should prove very interesting when, should there be you have to make a choice. Do you do the evil? Or do you not? Do you know what I mean? Because as a reader, it's like we're following the evil people. We are following the bad guys. But in the context of the story, we're liking the bad guys. We're with them. So when a truly important question, because I would say there's probably only one innocent that has been in the story, and Tony. I mean, guys, you both read this. The person that his friend at the very beginning of the comic.
Who gets him to go to the party with him?
Who gets him to go to the party.
Yeah.
You haven't seen them since. And I wouldn't be surprised if that person comes back into it involving the moral choice. I could be completely wrong.
Right, okay. You got to kill him and then you be part of the gang on it.
But they seem to be the only decent person in it, because they were just sort of like, they're just the supportive friend, aren't they?
I think this is his best series so far. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know that I did dislike the previous two, but I think I'm enjoying this the most of the three.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's good that it's. I was a huge fan of. Vinyl.
Plastic was your favourite one, wasn't it?
Vinyl was my. Vinyl was my.
Right. Okay.
Plastic one was just the. Pardon the pun, the 12 gauge blast out of nowhere. That I was like, fucking hell, this is brilliant. Vinyl was the one that was the. Oh, for the second film, they got a bit more budget and they're using it. Do you know what I mean? They've done really well. Yeah. And this one seems to be more of a little bit more of a character study in a, it's sort of, it's part.
Doug's not a furry, he told us so.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
No.
Only for research purposes.
Yeah.
We thought he was normal.
Well, compared to us.
Compared to us. Yeah. The only thing about this issue that sort of caught me is it ends quite suddenly.
Okay.
Normally, these books have a nice sort of like the final panel, sort of like, oh shit, the last panel of the entire book is the one that's like, oh, let's have the next one. Because I read it in a sort of a panel mode, it was such a normal moment, for want of a better term, that when it came to the to be continued, I was like, oh, it just caught me off. I think when it's a collection, it'll just mean it'll flow quite well. But and I'm looking forward to seeing your opinion on that last page. There is a kind of a big
I'll read it tomorrow now, I reckon. Yeah.
Okay. But it's still absolutely brilliant series. Get in from issue 1 and catch up, because it is just a lovely bit of serial killer fun. It's crazy, isn't it? That some of the most fun we're having from comics is like some of the most darkest and most twisted.
My next one's fucked up. I can see it now.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Plush, go get that and support the creators. And Tony, what's this one then?
Last one is The Rust Kingdom by Spugner, who's an Italian artist hailing from Milan, aka Tommaso Di Spigna. It's a mere €19. Editor is Michael Nitri. Published in English by Fast Edit. Sold at Angoulême on the Mansion Press table. Mansion Press being a company I've mentioned loads of times on here. Interestingly, it's the English language version, but I don't know if you know this about French books. Their spines are reversed. Do you know this?
No, I didn't know this.
Yeah, so that if the way that writing is on an English language book, spine it's upside down. If it's a French one. It's not upside down, but it's in their own way. So I just found that strange. I only just looked at that. I just realised that. So the story is, I'll read you from the blurb on the inside cover. In a wild land inhabited by worms and deformed barbarians, a swordsman with no name rises from a hole in the ground. Determined to reach his destination, he will smash everything he finds on his path. Everything. This is a story of flesh, blood, dust, blades, and rust. Now, that doesn't do a credit on how fucking weird it is. It's action-packed, it's colourful, it's not wordy at all, and it is most definitely not for people with a weak stomach. Really strong cover, actually. I spent the last few days with Sam, talking about presentation and packaging and stuff like that, and he picked this one out as being probably one of the strongest covers of the stuff I showed him. It's a weird one. It's a fantasy comic with very violent but very darkly humorous moments in it. It roams in colour. It's between sort of very fleshy, horrible moments, lots of bright red blood, and also it plays off against the dirt and stone of the environment that it's set in. It's very fresh, I have to say. I found it extremely fresh to read. There's a vague humanoid quality to a lot of the characters in it, and there's a sort of, some of them are displayed as worms. Most of them have distressing, almost vomit-inducing bodily mutation, disease, over every inch of the page, a lot of them being full bleed. There's a lot of single panel pages. There's no more than 3 panels in most of the pages. The designs in it are kind of a mixture of certain things. I tried to write down where I thought it was coming from, but it's part Clive Barker, part Ren and Stimpy, part heavy metal, and even at some points part the Moomins. So the main character, whilst he's this sort of weird, round, sordid character, and I say sordid in both ways, with a sword and also pretty grotty, he also has a Snufkin style hat on, if that makes sense. So there's that sort of weird fantasy element to it. But it's done with a real confident line. You know, if I said Ren and Stimpy, everyone think it's got this shaky line. It doesn't. It has a strong line. You know, this could be like the Triple X version of the Hilda universe to me. It's got that about it. You know? Very strong visuals. A genuine total wow factor on every page. It's a soft cover. You know, like the soft covers we brought, like in Waves or something like that. It's very similar to that sort of quality, but quite light paper stock. So it's quite an easy, light read. It's very matte, non-gloss paper stock, which we don't really mention the paper ever do. And I just was struck by reading it this morning, how it's lovely to read a page that you don't have to angle away from a lamp or something, where you can't see what's fucking going on. I think Marvel could still take a page out of that. It's just so violent. It's like a nightmare in reading, but at the same time, it's utterly fresh. There is a hero in it of a kind, and he evolves as he goes across this just horrible worm-infested, like mutant-infested landscape. And he evolves, and he as he ingests different things happen to him. There's a couple of creatures a bit like that, and it becomes more and more deadly. It's basically sort of a journey of this character across fighting different characters and trying to survive and growing in, you know, and there's this sort of rain of swords and, you know, rain of swords sort of thing going on. And he fights his way up to this castle and fights this massive creature. But there is all I'm going to say, I won't spoil the end. There's a Conan nod right at the end.
Right. Okay.
Which if you've seen the first Conan movie or, you know, the evolution of Conan, you know what will happen to him maybe in the end. It's an experience. I think I put it on in one chat group and someone just said, "Fuck me, that's twisted." You know, there's a certain area of our listeners who I think will dig in. A certain area of our listeners who will just continue to consider me as a weird person for recommending it. But if you go to there's a number of places you can go and have a look at the art. If you go to Instagram, you can see a good example of a lot of this art at Spugna, Spugna, Spugna Comics on Instagram. You can go to the publisher, which is hollow-press.net. There's also a hardback version of it as well. You can go to the creators. He's got a Tumblr, which is TMMASODISPIGNA, Thomasa Despigna on Tumblr. There's a sequel to it called Tales from the Rust Kingdom. On the table, the Mansion Press table, they had, I think, about 4 books by him. I just chose this one just fairly randomly on the fact that I really like the cover. It's got that sort of embossed logo thing on it as well. So go and do that. It's something fresh. Buy anything by Hollow Press, anything by Mansion House Press. There's some really good stuff going on. And I'm now instantly a fan of Spugna and his weirdness. But yes, a whole new thing. Don't know how I've missed it, but I have. There you go. My second one.
Nice. So there you go, folks. Plenty of comics and comic chat for you to go into your week thinking about, probably adding to your wish lists to purchase at a future time, whether it be books that are yet to be translated or, you know, books that you can get now. But certainly lots of comics that you should definitely get your hands on at some point in time. And we're glad you got back safe, Tony.
Thanks, babes. Anthony was a bit tired today.
Glad you had such a great time.
Yeah. Oh man, it's invigorating, is what it was. You know, it just really it was a shot in the arm for me. It really was.
Yeah. So no doubt there'll be plenty more good comic stuff to come from Europe. I was about to say Europe comics, but European comics and stuff. There'll probably be lots of stuff that Tony got a glimpse of that we'll discover down the line. Just go, God, how did I not know about this?
Oh man, there's so much I saw that I'm just desperate for them to translate.
I'm interested because, like, when we talked about the the manga stuff, they seem to be well on board with the manga stuff way before the UK was. So
there's a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, it is.
Drawing up the drawbridge now seems a bit. The horse is really fucking bolted, but
you're not going to change the kids' minds, are you? And those kids will be adults in a couple of years, won't they? And that's what they'll be still looking for. But you might be able to get some BD and Marvel and DC under their eyes as well, you know?
Yeah. But if any of you kids are listening to this show many years in the future, then thank you for listening. And if there's anything you want us to talk about in the future, both old and new listeners alike, there's several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us, awesomecomicspod at comics. What was that? Awesome Comics.
Comics.
The Dutch one.
Doing a Sean Connery.
Awesome Comics. Awesomecomicspod at gmail.com. Follow us on social media at The Awesome Pod. Join the Slack channel, which is full of loads of good groups and group talks, whether it be creator discussions, crowdfunding discussions, just comics discussions. There's something for everyone on there. From including people all over the world. And certainly the community we are a very open community. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you've listened to this, please join us. Because if you love
gatekeeping on our Slack.
If you love comics, whether it be making or just reading or whatever, if you love comics, then come talk to us. And talk
one thing about the Slack, we've had no moderation required. It's pretty
we haven't, have we?
No, all run itself because we're all fucking adults.
Yeah.
Well, I say that,
Apart from me.
Yeah, Dan, you bumhead. Anyway, and for more adult discussion and grown-up behaviour, you can find it on our website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, leave a review, etc. It helps get the word out about the show and everything we talk about every week. If you listen to us on other networks, such as Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what are the networks we on, Tony?
We're on the infamous pod, Zero Interest in the Vagina.
They really need to shorten the name of that one.
Yeah, too long, that one.
Yeah.
Scrolls across your car screen, didn't it?
Your car screen. Look at
you. When you have that little thing on your car.
Yeah, look at you. Yeah, if you're well flash.
You've got ballet shoes in your car.
Hey? Ballet shoes. What of it? Anyway, where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neverironanything.com. Easy.
Go. Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Lovely. And you can find me, probably waffling about something, on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for joining us this week, folks. There's plenty more fun and comics to come over the next couple of episodes before the big 400.
But, that's coming around.
Yeah, we'll announce more details of that soon because we might
need to get on that soon, don't we?
Yeah,
bit of audience participation. So stay tuned to our socials, etc., for details of that. But until then, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing, we hope you're happy, healthy, doing well, because we all love you very much. Dan, you love them, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
pretty much.
Pretty much, in a way.
In a way. And I tell you what, that's the best way. Trust me.
He's coming around to my way of thinking.
Yeah. Well, the way you love them, Tony.
Hard love. I'll give him tough love.
I sent you that Alan Partridge screenshot when you went off to France on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
We're not saying that out loud.
No.
But what we will say out loud is have a brilliant week, everyone. Read loads of comics. Make loads of comics. Just keep the absolute joy of this medium alive. And as always, well, actually, what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Perfect.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.